What's going on, boys? Thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers, subscribe to our Patreon free for behind the scenes stuff. Arm yourselves, life stuff. We'll try to keep this one shortish because all I want to do is play Witchfire since the new update. But if we don't make the videos now, then they won't get made because a week from now I'm not going to care, and for whatever reason we have a lot to think about right now. And I was thinking about immigration. An African dude, an African immigrant dude, chimed in on the American Blackness video, and I wanted to leave that entire exchange up to make my point, which is one of the only reasons I'll let people who bug me stay around, by the way. You're doing why you bug me, and that makes my point in as organic and case in point a way as possible. But YouTube buried the exchange, and then I noticed the analytics on the video went to shit. So fuck it. We'll talk about some of it in its own video, and we'll go a bit further. Because I've been thinking about what immigration is and the way I think it should work. And this fits nicely both because three branches of my family haven't been in this country longer than 100 years, and the only one that might have been in there a bit longer couldn't have been in there that much longer. And then on top of that, for the last 4 or 5 years, I've been living a regional immigrant experience, which is the strangest thing. American regionalism is pretty intense, but it's especially intense here because this is an old, hoity-toity area. I've said it before, it might have been a while since I've said it, but there's almost no middle class here. Either you're wealthy and you're part of a family that's been wealthy for a long time, or you're one of the poor motherfuckers serving those families. I lucked out. I have one of the sort of middle class jobs here. I don't get paid as much as I'd like, but in terms of money and in terms of status, middle class, relevant middle class. And I have these ugly regional exchanges fairly regularly. Usually they are passive aggressive, and one of the most annoying sorts of the sort of person that gives me shit gave me passive aggressive shit today because they all do the same shit. You are in a sneaky way, passive aggressive way, going to make it clear to yourself and to me and to whoever else is around that I'm not from here and I don't get it and I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be in the position I'm in, especially because of the significance of the, or at least the legacy significance of the nonprofit I direct. And I told him he was rude, and that made him uncomfortable, that made everybody uncomfortable, and then he tried to do this sneaky, placating me thing, which I didn't bite on, and then he left. And then a few hours later, one of the community projects I was trying to put together ran into a legal snare that isn't really a snare because that's that entire thing that they tried to get us on. That's something we can just drop. No loss there. But that's the way it works around here. And situations like these, and especially conversing with the African American, actual African American, it all gave me cause to cement the ways I think about immigration. Both how it should work, in my mind, for actual immigration, and then later we'll get into broadly what immigration is and the ways I see an immigrant should go about their immigration if they're going to go through with it. I don't like first generation immigrants having power unless you serve, which one of my bloodlines did. My paternal grandfather, he immigrated from the Philippines by joining the Navy in this program. And I guess that's still going on because you'll sometimes see memes about the Pinoy Mafia in the Navy specifically. And even though I don't like it, I think if you serve, or if you immigrate by serving, first generation, you should have power. I still don't like it. Even if, one, you serve, and two, you go about it in the way, or one of the ways, one of the quotes, better ways we'll get into later, still don't like it because you aren't of the culture and the land you are joining. I like the idea of first generation immigrants having, like the Terran Federation's rights like they're civilians. You have every right except franchise. You don't get a vote because your soul started and came up somewhere else. Presidents can't be first generation immigrants. And I think this connects up with the it's biblical, but raise a child in the ways he should be, and in his adulthood or in his maturity he will not depart from them. It's like that. You are a cookie from a different cookie sheet. But if you've gone through the process, immigrated fully, secured all your rights except franchise, if we are going to continue in American tradition, your kids get votes. Your successful immigration proved your blood can fit here, and your new blood will be of here. Painfully so, probably, but for the United States, that might be a good thing. You have Morrowind's Outlander Dunmer. You have Crowley's Outlander Kings, which is an interesting concept. The idea that ailing kingdoms to revitalize need singular and excellent outsider blood at the highest levels. One who knows your ways as if born to them. And you encounter that in weird ways sometimes. Great people from X country who seem like they should be in Y country or taking part in Y country, and a lot of times they end up in Y country. But that's not the flooding in masses. Now, all this is different if you plan on conquering, but this is where we get into the more general concept of how a person goes about immigration. And this is mostly what I've been thinking about. In my eyes, there are 3 ways you can immigrate. And the first is the most destructive for everybody, especially for the culture you're immigrating to itself. This is the form of immigration in which you, quotes, become a citizen of another nation, but you continue to be whatever it is you came from. You hold on to it. And that bugs me because you're going to be what you were anyway, even if you try your hardest not to be, which is something people seem not to understand. You can't change what you are. If I moved to England and I became an English citizen, and I tried hard, I got into dumb soccer and irony, I would still be an American even if I shunned my Americanness. You can't change what you are. And the reason this is the most destructive or the most damning for everybody is you bring your shit that you were leaving to the place you're trying to escape it in. You're trying to eat your cake and have it too. What you're doing in this little wormy way is trying to continue living in a way or according to a standard that is most comfortable to you without having to deal with the price your way of living cost you back home. You don't want to walk on shit-covered streets because that's disgusting and it stinks. It's terrible. But then you go to a place with no shitty streets and then you shit all over the streets. You're pissing off your new host culture or your, quotes, home culture. You're pissing yourself off because you're living with your own shit here. You're creating conflict for yourself and for others, and that would be a bad enough situation for an individual. But then you add hundreds of them, thousands, millions, and then the direction of the nation gets lost. It's a big mess. Nobody's happy. There's no heading. So all there is to do is eat each other alive, implode the culture. And again, that's what you see most. But then there are two separate, diametrically opposed ways to immigrate that are a lot healthier. Maybe not more constructive with the last one, but we'll get to that. Second one, you immigrate, and as best you can, you annihilate every trace of what you were. You'll never do that completely because you're a first-generation immigrant, but when you immigrate with this mindset and go about it in this way, your children are a lot less likely to continue the tradition of the first camp of immigrants, which is another thing. First camp of immigrants, they pass that exact same shit, that outlook, those issues down to their children and their children's children. It spreads. It's like a disease. You deny your children the ability to integrate, not only to the country you're living in right now, but also in your home country, because they're born here. They grew up here. They can't fully be here because of your stupid ass, but they also have no homeland to go back to, because that homeland wouldn't accept them, because it creates problems. And it seems like every culture, except the most, quote, sophisticated ones, understand that. But you gotta love thy neighbor, so whatever. Anyway, back to the second camp, the nobler camp. Even if you annihilate all traces, as many traces as you can of what you were, your children will still probably have some trouble because they came from you and they've seen what you're like. They're molded by what you're like, but they're also molded by their new homeland. And in this setup, in this situation, their new homeland has a better opportunity to take root. And this is one of the beautiful things about the United States, and why I'm not against immigration wholesale, like the English are, and all those fucking countries. It's a powerful tool when you do it right. That second generation has a lot of the worst of both worlds, but in terms of what they bring to the table, culturally, genetically, the nation gets the best of both worlds. The nation gets outside concepts, outside strategies, outside ideas, outside blood in a nation-allied vessel. And I'm shocked people don't talk about Starship Troopers. Everyone should be talking about Starship Troopers all the time. Why? It's a damned crime Heinlein isn't more popular in academic circles. I know why he's not popular in academic circles. But you look into him, you'll be surprised. He might be... He's now competing with Hemingway for my favorite sad boy. I'm still quietly stoked at the fact Heinlein is the one who wrote All You Zombies, which I think is where the philosophical zombies thing comes from. And also there's some other shit to that story. Wow. In Starship Troopers, I think the planet is called Sanctuary, but they discuss the differences between Terra and Sanctuary, especially the consequences of living on one or the other in the long, long, long term. It made me laugh pretty hard when Sanctuary gets described, or when Juan describes Sanctuary also. He says it's like Earth, but retarded, literally retarded. And that's, I think, the exact description. Sanctuary doesn't get radiation the way Earth or Terra does. Meaning, Sanctuary didn't have the means to mutate, and that made them genetically stagnant. So when Earthlings rolled in, or Terrans rolled in, Terran flora, Terran fauna, they wiped the floor with Sanctuary's ecosystems. Because Earth gets that radiation, mutates, and allows survival of the fittest to happen. And when survival of the fittest is permitted to happen, you get the fittest. We need mutation and muttery. Done right, that's the sort of shit that makes us strong. Done wrong, it fucks up everything. But actually, it's funny that this dreadfully fascist manifesto masquerading as a sci-fi novel, it's actually more pro multiculturalism than I am, because Juanito, he's Filipino, and they talk about, or they mention, still speaking Tagalog around the house sometimes, and they have all the different religions, they have all the different cultures and races and stuff, and there are still distinct cultures within the Federation, but they're all somehow still the Federation. I don't know, maybe pure fascism holds secrets of kindness and morality and acceptance that we lowly liberals and conservatives and whatever else we don't have in our time. Duce might have been onto something, I don't know. Oh, and that was the other thing I wanted to mention. Something I picked up on my third listen. Rico mentions, when they speak to the Padre to pray, he mentions the Abrahamic religions, which should go with the territory, but he also mentions Gnosticism. And that didn't stick out to me originally. I thought it was a cool little thing he put in there, but it should. I swear to you, if I were doing my PhD, if I could have hacked it and gotten in, and I were working with a university that had some balls, that would be a good thesis. Why does Heinlein put Gnosticism, which that's... Oh, that feels like a big deal. It feels like a really big deal, especially when you consider the book was written in the early 60s. That is pre-internet ball knowledge. And it's so casual, the way Rico mentions it. And it's not just mentioning it alongside them, but it's mentioning it alongside them with the implication that Gnosticism is a major interplanetary religion alongside the big Abrahamic three, or traditional Abrahamic three, in the world of Starship Troopers. And Gnosticism is the only branch of Abrahamic anything I feel any positive feelings toward. It's so different, and there's something to that, and damn, sometimes I wish I were still in school. Anyway, big tangent over. Now we get into the third camp of immigration. And this has been heavy because if I stay here, and I might not stay here, I might treat this as if this were a work visa or something, and head back to rainy, miserable, haunted ass Flolga. But if I don't, this third camp is where I'm going to have to be. And it's funny because there are a lot of third camp people in this area. And globally, global immigration, you do see a lot of third camp immigration. And this is the conquering immigration. In the third camp, you immigrate with no intention whatsoever of assimilating, of integrating. Whether you do it positively or negatively, or well or poorly, you're here to destroy this culture you're in now. And that's another interesting thing. Back to Starship Troopers, we can't stop talking about it. In the dumb movie, which I still like, it's implied humans are the reason the bug war started. We stepped on their land, and they're only defending themselves. They didn't do anything. Didn't do nothing, even. In the book, the events are less clear, but the philosophy behind why the war is happening is clear. Cultures that want to survive spread. And it's another thing that's funny. Heinlein talks about, I think this is in the officer candidate school bit, they're talking about the idea of perfectly balancing life and death and having a fixed population, perfectly managing resources within whatever number has been decided. That could work great until you run into a culture that chose to continue spreading and probably wants to spread into your shit, or could spread into your shit. And then you're fighting, and they have more than you. And because they're continuing to compete, they probably have better than you. Which is the situation the Terrans run into with the pseudo-arachnids. In the book, it doesn't really matter who did what, because the conflict is inevitable. And both sides are on the offense. Culturally, it's kill or be killed. And there's probably something about the way, or a good way to go about subjugation in there, because in the Terran Federation, as I mentioned earlier, there are all these cultures that still exist, but they're ultimately Terran first, truly Terran first. And then there's another race in the books that's not in the movies called the Skinnies. I don't think they mention a science-y name for them, but they serve as co-belligerents against the bugs. Initially kind of enemies, and then they become friends, but not really enemy of my enemy situation. But in Officer Candidate School, they talk about the way, when they're talking about scientific morality, they are working on, or the Federation is working on a scientific morality, or a scientifically moral way to go about interspecies relations. So I think Heinlein is weirdly multicultural, but in a fascistic way. But I don't know. Once again, the ladies and gentlemen in black are operating on a much higher level than we are. And we're gonna have to put another plus Starship Troopers in the thumbnail now. My point in bringing all this up is I've been thinking a lot about my place here and my future here if I stay. The native dynasties, the natural-born dynasties, don't want me here. But I'm not going to annihilate the identity I came here with, both because it's superior, it's fitter, and also because my pride. If I tried to annihilate my identity and fit in and have kids here, and maybe they would be nothing like me, or maybe a little bit like me, my pride just couldn't bear it. So that keeps me firmly out of Camp 2, and then on top of all that, I can't even do the half-assed, bad for everybody Camp 1 thing, because I don't want to fit in with these people. I have come to hate them. I'm better than you are. And I'm nicer than you are. That's what really bothers me. It's the lack of courtesy. you are not courteous, and you are not receptive to courtesy. There is no way to get along with you. The difference is, again, I'm better than you. All of this shit they say they care about, one, they don't care about. They don't know anything about themselves. They act like they do. They want to feel like they do, but they don't, in fact. And then on top of that, outsiders control, or at least manage, all the shit they say they care about. You're so unfit, you've allowed outsiders to control everything you think matters to you. That's how unfit you are. And it's not even like they're being kept out. They don't want to do anything. You extend them the opportunity to participate in their own culture that they care about so much, and they don't want to do any work. They don't want to do any work whatsoever. But the thing is, they're already starting to get eaten alive. Because they don't want to do anything, because all they want to do is complain. It's like watching social media, or the consequences of social media, play out in real life. They think complaining does something. All they want to do is complain. As their legacies, their histories, these grand institutions get taken from them bit by bit, and in a lot of cases in big chunks. And if I stay, that's the camp I'm going to be in. Out of self-preservation, out of self-interest, and out of contempt, I will actively participate in separating you from this shit you don't deserve on any level. And I'll continue to help caretake the parts of the legacies I like, because it seems like generations ago some cool shit was happening here. This was a pretty big deal. But you aren't a big deal. Your ancestors were. I will partake in the building of something new and the scraping of the plate, and I'll help replace you with something new and greater. Because you don't want to fight for it. You don't want to do anything. And why do I say Camp 3 is superior to Camp 1? Because at least Camp 3 has a core, a mission, and a direction. I'd rather deal with an Islamic Germany and an Indian United Kingdom than watching whatever this shit is play out forever. And frankly, the same is true for the United States, or I feel the same way for the United States. If replacement is where the United States' future is, then let's hurry up and get there so at least we're a nation. Not this crumbling, staggering, boil-covered mass we are at present. I hate the fact my life will most likely be spent in the midst of an aimless dying. But that about covers it, and we will cut it here. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.